So we are on sprint number 28. We'll be releasing Fleet version 4.56.0, codename Nickel. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Have some cool features to show today. And we're going to start off with MDM features. Again, we have both product groups contributing. So we're going to start with the Endpoint Ops product group contributors who have contributed MDM features. And I'll hand over to Sharon.
Okay, thank you, Luke. I'll start with the expected auto install, very nice feature. However, we experienced some delays with that, so that will move on to the next release. So stay tuned for that. And I'll move to Victor to present a feature of using the browser's progress bar.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. So this is the story. Basically, we want, when we download it from the web browser, we want to see the progress bar in the browser. So originally, the download was happening in the background with JavaScript, but we want to use the kind of the native browser approach. So the documentation for that is basically two API endpoints that are in the contributor docs. So they're not part of the regular API. There's two endpoints. We get a token for the download, and then we do the download using the token. So this is how it looks. We go here to our software item, and we say actions download, and then you can see the download is started up here using a browser's native UI, and then you can pause it, restart it, maybe kill it. That's it. Back to back to George.
All righty, thank you. Getting us started today will be Dante with some self-service VPP for macOS.
Hey, I actually pre-recorded this demo, so I'll just try to play it from my screen and see if that works. It wants me to, okay, let's see if this works now. It wanted me to restart Zoom. Hey, what's up? Today we're going to be doing a quick little demo of self-service VPP. As you can see here, we have a single macOS virtual machine under this new VPP team. This macOS virtual machine has Fleet installed. We're also going to see that in the settings we have VPP tokens enabled. Right here. Now if we go to software, you can see we have no software on this team. We can click add software and check out the VPP apps. Now let's give this macOS something fun. Let's give him Slack, how about that? And then we check self-service. You can see now that we have Slack listed as a self-service app for the VPP. So if we go over to the Mac, we can now open the Fleet device page. And I've already loaded it here because it tends to be a little bit slow since it's running over ngrok. Now we'll notice here we have a self-service tab. This icon's a little large right now, but we're already fixing that. And I should be able to click install. And it says installation in progress. This should now reach out to the macOS Apple servers and line this up for installation. It could take a couple minutes, so I won't sit around and wait for this to finish. But there you go. Yeah. VPP self-service running.
Alrighty, thank you very much, Dante.
You're
Next
welcome.
up, we've got Haziel, I believe, with another video for my new migration support.
Yeah, I'm doing what all the cool kids are doing and pre-baking this demo. So
let's just say, as a team, we had a lot of features that take a while to set up and to walk through.
yes, and even in the demo, like I had to, well, you'll see that I had to do some things to make it so we don't sit around forever. Okay. Can you all see my screen? It says allegedly that it's sharing audio, so let's give this a try. Hey, this is a demo of the new MDM migration feature for manually enrolled macOS hosts. This feature allows hosts that are manually enrolled in a third-party MDM to be migrated over to Fleet MDM using the Fleet desktop application. Previously, only ADE or automatically enrolled hosts were able to be migrated in this way, but now we can do that for manually enrolled hosts. This is only available on macOS Sonoma, so that's 14 or greater. Before macOS Sonoma, you can still only do the migration for ADE enrolled hosts. All right, so this is my macOS virtual machine, and you can see that it is enrolled in MDM, and it's enrolled into a test micro MDM server that we have set up. You can see over here, if we run the MDM CTL command line tool, which allows us to interact with micro MDM, and we search for the serial number of the VM, you can see that it is enrolled. So that's kind of the setup. The other piece of the setup is installing fleetd, including Fleet Desktop. So you can see that we've got Fleet Desktop set up here. It's up and running. And if we come to, this is the UI for my local Fleet instance, you can see that we have the virtual machine enrolled via Orbit/OS query into Fleet, but not MDM. And that's what we want to fix. We want to get this host MDM enrolled into Fleet. So now that we have the host set up the way we need it to be, we can go ahead and enable the migration flow, and that is done inside of Fleet, and you can do that through the UI. So you go to Settings, Integrations, and Mobile Device Management. The UI for this hasn't changed. It still all looks the same. So down here you have this section that's called End User Migration Workflow, and you can configure the migration flow here. So we can go ahead and enable it. I'm going to set it to forced because that will just make things happen automatically. If you set it to voluntary, the only difference is that instead of Fleet Desktop automatically prompting users to go ahead and do the migration, it's just triggered when a user interacts with Fleet Desktop instead. That's really the only difference there. But force will just make the demo kind of go a little bit smoother. And you can see here that we have a webhook URL set up. This webhook URL points to a server that I have running here on my local machine. Yeah, it's set up to handle the payload, which we can see here. So this is sent during the migration flow. Once you kick off the migration flow on the host, this webhook URL gets hit with this request, and the handler needs to take care of unenrolling the host. So the server that I have running to handle this webhook will just send an MDM command to the host through microMDM, through the microMDM server we have set up. It'll send it an MDM command to unenroll. So now that we have these pieces of configuration set up, we can go ahead and hit save. And just a quick note, once I hit save, we'll see the UI for the migration pop up pretty quickly on the host. I have kind of tinkered with the timers to make it more demoable, so we don't kind of have to sit around for a while. Fleet Desktop in production fetches the configuration, which includes a notification to tell it to start the migration. It fetches that every 5 minutes, but I have it sped up to fetch it every 10 seconds. So we'll see it happen pretty quickly in this demo. And just know that in production, it waits a little bit longer to fetch the configuration. So if we go ahead and click save, and we come over to our host, we should be able to see the UI pop up pretty quickly, like I said. And yep, here we go. Cool. So the host is now being told that to migrate to Fleet. And you can see here that we are guiding users to, this is kind of a mini screenshot from the My Device page, because they'll have to download the enrollment profile to install it and enroll into Fleet. And yeah, so if we click later, the user can click later and kind of ignore the request. After they hit start, like it said there, the pop-up is going to come up every 3 minutes. So it's going to kind of persistently remind them that they have to migrate. But we can click later and dismiss it for now, and it'll pop up. If you haven't clicked start yet, it should pop up every 15 minutes instead. And this is just to demonstrate the migrate to Fleet option in the Fleet Desktop menu. So if you click it, and you can see here that it says migrate to Fleet, and the user can come back and click on that anytime in order to launch the UI for migration. So if we go ahead and click start, we'll get a little kind of loading screen while the webhook is firing and the webhook is working to unenroll the host. And that can take, several seconds to complete, but it shouldn't take too long. So let's go ahead and click start. Okay, so the host unenrolled. You can see here that the profile is no longer installed, and Fleet Desktop goes ahead and launches the My Device page automatically after that process finishes, so that the user can go ahead and install the profile. Now, one other thing that I want to demonstrate is that we have kind of a new UI for the case where the host loses network connectivity. Sometimes the credentials and other configuration for network access is done via profile, and when the old profile is removed, the host can't connect to the network anymore. So to simulate that, I'm going to go ahead and in this VM just disable what it thinks is the Ethernet. just to kind of force it to show that UI. So if we go ahead and disable it, we can go ahead and click migrate to Fleet again. And so this host doesn't have internet access anymore. Well, so you can see here that this is the new UI for the kind of state where the migration is still in process. The user hasn't fully migrated over to Fleet, but they don't have internet access. So whenever it would normally prompt them to say, hey, finish the migration, it'll just tell them, hey, you need to get on the network first. And if you go and manually click on migrate to Fleet, it'll tell you, hey, there's no internet connection. Make sure you connect to the internet. So we can turn this back on just to keep going and finish the process. So now if I click migrate to Fleet, I should see the regular UI. Okay, cool. So remember, we're kind of halfway done, right? We unenrolled from the previous MDM, but we haven't finished enrolling into Fleet. So if we click start here, we no longer have to hit the webhook. This is just going to launch the My Device page directly. And we can go ahead and follow the instructions in the banner to set up MDM. So we can download the profile, and here in the macOS settings, go ahead and enroll. And that should do it. We should see the other couple of profiles that we installed. Yeah, here they are. Great. So if we go ahead and refetch, so we'll sync up the host with Fleet, and we should be able to see that it is now, or I guess if we come over here actually to the Fleet UI on the admin side, we see here that this is now enrolled in Fleet MDM. And yeah, if we come back over here to the host, well, you can see actually that that Fleet D is getting updated. So Orbit and Fleet Desktop got updated, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Haziel.
Yeah. Real quick, I realized I forgot to do the
Did we lose him?
Disconnected his own internet.
I forgot to hang up.
Wrong make inactive.
I really the like 3 layers of virtualization there with like my screen recording really confused me. Sorry about that.
Screen exception.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot to read the story. So yeah, as an end user, I want to know that I might see a system notification and only want to see Fleet Dialog if my Mac is not in ABM, so that I have an easy time migrating to the new MDM solution. So this actually kind of leaves out the manual flow of that. There were some updates to the ADE flow as well, like the regular migration flow, but they're purely cosmetic. It's some copy changes and things like that. But we did have to kind of rebuild how Fleet Desktop manages this. So it was a bit of a lift, as Sarah knows. But yeah, the big things that I think were the really big ones were the manual migration and then that offline handling state. So yeah, just wanted to give some context there.
All righty, thank you so much. And then here we go, share sound. And I've got Martin's work that Gabe provided a video for, where as an IT admin using a self-hosted Fleet, I want to add a bootstrap package to Fleet and have Fleet store it in S3 instead of the database, so that backing up the database is cheaper. And here we go.
Hi, so this is a demo for storing the Bootstrap package in S3 instead of the database like we currently do. So as an IT admin using self-hosted Fleet, I want to add a Bootstrap package to Fleet and have Fleet store it for me in S3 instead of the database, so that backing up the database is cheaper. So if we jump over to the Fleet UI, under Controls, Setup Experience, we have the Bootstrap package here on the left. We'll go ahead and upload a file that I have ready for us here. So you can see now it's been uploaded to the UI. We can do this through GitOps as well. For the purpose of the demo, I've gone ahead and done this already for a MacBook Air. on this QA team. So we'll jump over to that device. You can see here, the host has the package installed. And now if I jump over to my S3 bucket, I can browse down to this new folder that we're now creating called Bootstrap Packages. And there you can see the contents of the file. And if I quickly jump over to the database, you'll notice it's still referenced here. However, the bytes are null, so we're not taking up any additional space on the database. What about customers that don't have S3 configured? So we'll continue to store the Bootstrap package in the database for them. Existing customers that have S3 configured and want to move it over to the S3 bucket out of the database can do so by simply going back to that same location, and they can just delete that package, re-upload it, and then it'll get moved over to the S3 bucket. All right, thanks for watching.
Alrighty. Next up, we've got Roberto giving some results on the load test.
Yeah, this is going to be a quick one. So the user story is, as a self-hosted fleet user, I want to load test all reference architecture breakpoints with macOS and Windows MDM features turned on, so that I know what infrastructure resources I need to handle the load test of my fleet needs. This was mainly to prepare for a prospect and test around 30,000 hosts. We have the load test results here if anyone is interested, but we fixed a couple of issues, and we tried that reference architectures, and we even went up to 60K hosts, and the application works fine with the defined architectures we have documented in the website. So yeah, we should be good to go on that front.
Awesome, thank you so much. And then lastly, we've got Sarah with her demo for the new enforcing settings before macOS, iOS, and iPadOS are automatically enrolled.
All right, thanks, George. I'll start with the user story. As an IT admin, I want to require my end users to have a minimum OS version installed on the host before they enroll to MDM via Apple's automated device enrollment, so that I can make my new host compliant before they are enrolled into production. All right, we have a snazzy demo video here that I will narrate. So here we are going to the controls page of the Fleet UI, where we're switching to our QA team. We've set a minimum version of 14.5 for macOS hosts with the deadline passed. We have a MacBook Air that's pending ADE enrollments. We're going to switch over to that machine itself, which is already here on the enroll screen. And when the user tries to enroll, they're going to be greeted with this dialog that macOS provides, telling the user that they'll need to upgrade to the very latest macOS version, 14.6.1, before they're allowed to enroll in ADE. And that's our feature. One thing to note, it does require the user to upgrade to the very latest macOS version. That is a limitation that Apple has forced upon us because they're currently have a bug in their the way that they process minimum OS versions in DEP, ADE. That's going to be fixed by Apple eventually, I think, in 14.6, but for existing hosts that are below that, we still need to handle those cases. And so we're upgrading to the very latest macOS version. If that's a problem for a particular customer, they can avoid the automatic upgrade on DEP enrollment by setting a minimum version in Fleet to something lower than what the host is coming in at. So they could set it to 14.4 if their host was on 14.5.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Alrighty, that concludes the MDM features for now. Back to you, Luke.
Thanks. Great MDM features coming out with this release. Over to Endpoint Ops and Sharon Katz for the Endpoint Ops features.
Thank you, Luke. And we'll start. So we have several Endpoint Ops features this sprint, and we'll start with Rachel and Victor presenting better information on empty states for vulnerabilities and others. Take it, Rachel.
Hey, everybody. First off, happy Friday. So here we are. We're going to be looking at 19857. We've had several people in this meeting have a look at this already since it needed to be revamped a few times. But you can read here that the goal is for a user on the vulnerabilities page to see a clearer explanation of why a CVE search is returning no results. That way they can understand whether Fleet has no record of it or whether they're not affected. So here are some different asks. It's if we know if we're not aware of a CVE, or if we're aware of the CVE, but there's no vulnerable assets detected on their Fleet instance, or if Fleet can't detect these types of vulnerabilities. And this was a customer ask. We have 3 different customers here, and we ended up meeting with a customer last Thursday and revamping the whole design, and then on Monday revamping it again because it seemed like weird to have the back end work differently than the front end. And so we're on our 3rd iteration, and who knows, there might be another one, but I'm going to go ahead and walk you through this user journey right now. So this is our current quintessential example that a customer might look at. They have CVE 2024. I'll zoom in a little bit for you guys. And 2325. And that CVE is actually a specific CVE that does exist in the NVD database. But when you look at this, you're met with the fuzzy search of all the CVEs that have some kind of string that matches that. And you don't actually know whether or not the CVE exists on any host, or if it actually exists at all, like you don't know. So what we are doing is we are allowing users to search by exact match. And this has been a topic of conversation all week on how we want to do that. So the newest designs is by updating our search bar in order to allow for exact match using quotes around it. So here we are on my dev environment. This is the only place that this is at because it's still in progress. Should be merged in shortly. And what we're going to do is we're going to exact match using quotes. And I made this nifty, oh my gosh, like flowchart just to like help me figure out exactly how I'm doing this, because there's so much that is actually being added behind the scenes that is going to help the users understand better whether or not that CVE exists. So the stuff in yellow is basically what already exists. So did the user type in a search query? Does it return results? Yes, show the results. If there's a filter, if there's an exploited filter, show no items match this empty state, or if there's a search query as well. And then what we're adding now is if they're searching with a quote. And so there had to be a little bit of hoops on the front end to make this happen. We don't want them to see an empty state the moment they start typing a quote, because that would be really bad design. So it doesn't actually search until you close the quotes. And this is the first example where this is not a valid CVE. So they use quotes, they get this empty state saying, hey, by the way, you're typing in an invalid CVE. Okay, so let's keep going. So once they close the quotes, that's when it actually calls it. And if it's not valid, you see this empty state. If it is valid, though, we're going to check if it returns results or not. So let's go ahead and try an example that does return results. That's my example right here. Cool. And so you can see that this CVE returns results. And under the hood, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the network calls real quick. Under the hood, we are actually not calling the vulnerabilities endpoint. We are calling the /software/vulnerabilities with the CVE ID endpoint. So we're plugging in this string into this endpoint instead. And then Victor made sure that all the endpoints worked correctly in the back end. So this endpoint is 200. Then on the front end, I take that data and make it look like the data that was returned, the response that's returned from the general vulnerabilities responses endpoints. All right, so that's that one. If there is an exploited filter, this is where this kind of got tricky, because if there's an exploited filter here, this is an exploited one, but you might get a result back here, but I needed to check to see whether or not it is an exploited vulnerability first. So I have an example of that here as well. This one right here. So if I were to type this in, this is actually not an exploited vulnerability. It's just a regular vulnerability. So we should get no results if you have this dropdown selected, but if you were not filtering by exploited, you should still see it. So I had to do a little bit of hoops there to make sure that the users are seeing the correct matches for these dropdowns. And then what else? There's some more status code stuff that Victor had to update in the back. So what happens if it doesn't return a result? That's the nitty-gritty of all of this, is we want to let them know whether it's an invalid one, if it's unknown, or if it's known, if it's a known one. So we have 3 different status codes that could be returned when there's no result. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this first one here. And so this one is not a known vulnerability, so they get this UI here. They can learn more. This clicks into the phone processing on our website. Another example, so that's when we get a 204 back. We already saw the invalid CVE one, so let me just show you guys one more time. If you have an invalid CVE, you get this non-valid thing, and this is with a, I believe, 400 error. And then the last one is a 404 error. So this CVE, it looks like it's real, but it's actually not an actual CVE. And so then they're going to get this empty state that this is not a known CVE. And yeah, and I think George mentioned that it might be a little bit easier to not go through all the hoops with the quotation marks if we had a checkbox filter instead. So that might be a upcoming iteration on this. And hopefully this helps our users understand why their CVEs are not matching, or in this case that I put in here, why some users might still want to use a fuzzy search so they can still use it. And yeah.
Okay.
You want to show the docs?
Yeah. You want to show the docs? I can show the docs too.
Just those links.
Yeah, so the doc updates are here. And so now we're saying include the format must be CVE dash year dash 4 more digits. Was there other doc? And then yeah, it returns a 204 status code if there is a vulnerability, but we don't have any of those.
And we added a list of sources to the vulnerability processing page.
That's here. So these are all the different sources. Cool.
Okay, thank you, Rachel and Victor. And next, we have another thing that another improvement that customers, more than one customer, asked for. As you probably know, not all vulnerabilities are equal, and customers asked that we will be able to sort them according severity, and Rachel and team will present that.
Cool. I'm gonna let Tim give the intro to this, since we're going to start with Well, I'll introduce the what do you call it? The user story, and then we'll go to Tim's draft PR for his guide that he's written out, which is amazing. So as a security engineer on the software titles versions table, so we're also in the UI for this one. I want to filter software by vulnerability severity and known exploit so that I can decide which software to prioritize patching. So I'm just going to go here real quick. Once again, it's a very similar page, except we're now looking at this tab here. And this is the one on dog food. So this is the one that's not updated. Tim, you want to explain, and I can drive as you talk?
Sure. Yeah, just kind of give a little bit of an overview. I think customers were pretty loud about this. They need to better strategize their patching strategies or their patching process. So they want to know what software to patch and what's the most important software to patch. And so we are introducing new filters into the software page. So you can, if you want to maybe click into add filters. Two in particular, we have you can filter by severity and a known exploit. So now you can see, hey, what are the most important? What's the most important software I need to patch right now? Which is a really important question to answer for most companies, and this makes it a little easier. I think you had to go through a couple different steps before. You had to go through vulnerabilities, and you kind of had to backtrack and look at what software was attached to those. So this is a much easier step, and I think should go over well customers. Speaking of hidden complexity, actually a surprising amount of filters here. So we found a decent amount of unreleased bugs along the way. Oh, we forgot this filter, and then this condition. I think it's also it was a little more complicated because of the introduction of packages and or available for install titles as well as VPP titles. Those were in the mixes as well. So those are all kind of bundled into the software titles page.
Yeah. So as far as the UI goes, we used to have the vulnerable software as one of the drop-down options here. It's now going to be in this little filters button, and it's still here. For Fleet Free, they don't have access to severity or known exploits, so these two options are missing. And these options are filtering on the API, but you can also change them in the UI. So that was like a little Easter egg that I just nerded out on, and I changed it so if somebody wanted to, they can change the score up here. And they wouldn't get like some error state. So if you hover over this, they can see now severity is custom, but you can't click on the custom severity. This is here. And yeah, and so this is the step-by-step instructions. It's pretty self-explanatory. And like Tim said, this is definitely going to help out our users be able to focus on the software that have the most severity. Cool. Oh, this is a neat thing. I moved the search bar from it was technically the third position to the top. So using grids anyway. Hey, styling.
Okay, any questions for Rachel or team? If not, Victor has two features. One is last release, we removed support for an old MySQL, and this time we add something, a new version 8.4. And the second thing is passing secrets by STDN. Take it, Victor.
Thanks, Sharon. Okay, to share my computer audio, I have to type in my password. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Yes, okay. Okay, this is the engineering initiate story that we want to pass basically we want to pass secret values via standard in. So currently, when we start up Fleet, we can use command line, we can use environment variables, or we can read them all through a file. All these three methods can be accessed to by any actor who has access to the machine, who can run PS command, look at the processes, so they can get all these values that are being passed to Fleet. But if you pass these values via standard in, you can't see them using those previous methods because they're immediately going into memory. So let's go ahead and watch this demo. So this feature allows us to parse arguments. Simple example, where I will launch Fleet, but I will pipe in a -- help into the command. See? We got help. So now we can even delay when we get the command. So we'll Fleet 5. And now we're delaying 5 seconds, and I put in a little spinner here. Then it goes through. It also checks for shell rules like quotes. So for example, if I have a dangling double quote here, do this, we will get this new error, terminated double quoted string. Now here's the real power of this thing is instead of environmental variables or files, we can now use a secret manager like 1Password to grab certain arguments. For example, the server private key. Here, 1Password read, vault, item ID, and the name of the field in that item. So let's go ahead. So I think this this example is can't really quite see it, is something that basically anyone in the dev environment can use right now, right? So this way you can hide your server private key, right? The server private key protects your a lot of the certificates in the database. So we already encrypt them, but this is like another level of protection if we want to put the key outside of your machine. So it's saying reading additional arguments for standard in. It's waiting because 1Password access is requested here. So once I authorize it, Touch ID, it will go through. It's running my server. All right, so that's that feature. Documentation. We're just gonna documentation is pretty small. Just add a one-liner saying that command line flags can also be piped in via standard in. Okay, moving on to the next feature, adding support for MySQL 8.4. So we have customers who were trying to use 8.4 and it wasn't working for them. So I kind of went through and fixed some of the issues with 8.4. There's really two big changes that I've seen. One change is 8.4 is a bit stricter on foreign keys. Foreign keys have to be unique in the parent table, while they were not required to be unique before. And the other change is they changed a lot of the commands related to creating a replica database. So the way we're making sure we support it is simply by having continuous integration jobs that are using MySQL 8.4. So we're running our integration test and we're running our core unit test using 8.4 now. So we're running them on both 8.0 and 8.4. There is no documentation changes. I believe we don't explicitly forbid 8.4 anywhere. I think our documentation says like you can use 8.0 or higher. So at this point, unless someone knows otherwise, there's no documentation changes for this, but we should call it out in the release notes. All right, back to you, Sharon.
Thank you. Thanks, Victor. And next we have Eric showing us the ability to control configuration profiles with UI. Eric, take it. Do we have Eric?
I don't think Eric's on the call.
Okay, so there's a Loom, I can share it. Give me a second. Share this. So let's share with sound. Where is the share sound? Oh, they moved the share sound. See? Tell me if there's any problem hearing.
Seems like no audio.
MSP that offers a white label MDM solution built on top of Fleet. I want to use a UI to add, edit, and delete config.
Yeah, I might just need to turn up the audio as much as you can.
It was very quiet.
Sharon, you're muted.
Oh, sorry, I was muted too. I'm saying, yeah, that's the maximum I have here, and I'm looking on my computer. Zoom audio is on max. So I'll try, and that's the best I can do. Let me see. Sorry, let me share again. 1 second. Share. Optimize for video playing.
Maybe you can just play the video, and Rachel Perkins actually did some design work on this, I believe, right, Rachel? This is the deploy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you could just play the video and you could kind of speak over since she designed it.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. This is a story
I didn't know it got finished. I'm so excited.
This is a promise for a customer that I might have just said.
Okay, I'll start it.
We'll note that, but Rachel will speak to this. Thank you, Rachel. She's been helping out with product design. She's going to continue to help out with some product design while we're a little short-staffed on that side of the house and doing a great job. So very cool to see.
Yeah, so I'll play it. It's really low volume. Rachel, feel free to.
Maybe you want to start with the story?
Yeah, I can do that. 1 second. Story is here. So as a help desk user at MSP that offers a white label MDM solution built on top of Fleet, I want to use UI to add, edit, and delete configuration profiles and scripts across many of my clients, teams in Fleet, so that I don't have to use GitOps or repetitive actions to manage the same on each team. Any questions about the story? Not, then we'll try again. And okay, playing.
Yeah, so basically this is kind of like a side app, if you want to just play. In which case, we were going to do CRUD operations in bulk for configuration profile scripts and software, but that was just a tall ask. So we started with configuration profiles and scripts. Yeah, and instead of having to use GitOps or the UI and have to do repetitive actions, this will do it in bulk to all of them. You want to have? Okay, so this is just an example of a configuration profile, and you have it on a specific team. You would have to upload it again onto the next team, and assuming that's what they're saying. And then on the right, this is the UI for the side app, where you can see on the top, there's configuration profiles and scripts as your options. And this is the main configuration profiles page where you see the team drop down at the top, and you can see all of the configuration profiles across teams. You can edit this using the edit modal. So we're editing the profile, and you can upload a new profile or add it to more teams.
Settings. See that it was deployed. Now let's add
And so this ask from the customer, we weren't ready to put this into our actual product, and then open the can of worms of how are we going to maintain this, update it, iterate on it. And since it's a specific customer ask, we decided to do it on a separate app instead. We can also download it from there and delete from there. And I think they're just showing that right here. And this is all of Eric Shaw's work. So he's the developer who built this, which is pretty cool to see it's done. And this is using all of our existing APIs too, which is nice. It's calling a bunch of them in the background since we don't have like a bulk API. And then the same thing with deletes. This is removing it from all teams. I don't know if Eric's on the call right now.
I think he's at the marketing offsite.
Mm. And then here we have like a very similar UI for scripts where you can see all of your scripts across teams. You can use the team drop down to see different scripts on different teams, and then you can edit it to using that modal to add the same script onto multiple teams at the same time, remove them off multiple teams at the same time, and delete them. And as the MDM team knows, there's a lot of other things that we add to profiles and scripts, advanced options. We don't have that on here. This is just to get them, the bulk ones, to be on there. So this is kind of the MVP, minimum viable, to help this customer out. And then, yeah, I think they were just showing that if you highlight over the teams, you can see which teams it's on without having to click into it. Cool.
Okay, so thank you, Eric, and thank you, Rachel, for presenting it. Next, we have team with some improvements to the zero trust workflows, doing some improvements of the queries, and team, take it.
Hello. So this story is just going to read it verbatim. Support zero trust workflow with live queries. The scope kind of here being 6 queries on 13,000 hosts. I think it might be valuable to kind of dig into this a little bit, so I couldn't help myself, and I drew a couple things. So what does it mean to have zero trust and fleet working together? So we have a device, right? End user device, and that needs access to some kind of corporate resources, and maybe on a VPN to your corporate network. It might be through an identity profile to some cloud assets. The question you usually want to ask there from a company perspective, from a security perspective, is what is your device posture, right? I already know who you are, who this device belongs to. It's already authenticated. What is your device posture? And device posture being, I need to evaluate the threat that a device poses to an organization and a system. So is this device safe? And so customers came up with what I think is a brilliant idea of using Fleet for device posture, because Fleet knows all about your device and can provide that information for you. And these are, when we talk about device posture, we're talking about anything from is your firewall on, is your antivirus up to date, anything you might want to know before connecting this device to your corporate assets. So here comes the problem. When you start doing this at scale, we run into some problems. So in this case, we are hitting the host query endpoint, which runs a live query. And we've seen customers using very, very large queries because they want to know a lot about the device. And now we're seeing customers wanting to split up these large queries into multiple queries, multiple kind of medium-sized queries, both being kind of problematic for us right here in Redis. And so what we found, there's a lot of load testing work done here. This is basically all in load test. Things started to fall over when we had about roughly 10 or under active live queries, which isn't a ton when you're talking about, many, many thousands of devices, because Redis has to, those are all querying Redis, maybe in bursts, a lot at the same time. So, so this makes Redis a little sad, and it starts to get unstable. I'm not going to take credit for the proposed solution. There's a long conversation in the issue. Thank you to Lucas, Zach. There was Robert. There's a bunch of folks kind of discussing this, and this solution, which I'm sure is an improvement. One improvement, and I'm sure more to come as we see how customers are using us for zero trust and at different loads. But it's simply to cache some of the data we are storing in Redis for a small interval, about 1 second. But this reduces the load quite a bit. One other thing. I think our goal was roughly to have about 20 to 30 active live queries. We haven't spent the effort to define our actual top limit, but we're getting a lot. But one thing I want to point out, if customers are going to use this, they need to make sure to increase their the max connections configuration in Fleet to a lot, because we're sending a lot more to Redis now. We've kind of opened up the floodgates a little bit. And so that was really, really exciting to see, being able to sustain this load. And so Redis is a little happier now. And I think one thing we're also excited to see as we start upgrading customers to this in our cloud environments, as well as see what customer feedback is, they can use a smaller Redis, I think, and save some money on that front. So that's all I got.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Oh, sorry, one last thing. I guess I could show some live results. I just ran this right before demo time. I was a little scared to do live demos, but yeah, we're getting a decent amount of requests per second here. And yeah, this is also on the Redis side, kind of producing at peak, maybe 200 to 300 live queries, active live queries concurrently.
Thank you, Tim. It's always interesting what you can do with another layer of caching, like database being seen as, I don't know, file, and Redis is some kind of a serverless kind of memory, and then you put things right on the server memory. That's very interesting, but also a challenge for QA for this feature. So thank you, Tim. And last, for the endpoint ops features, before we move to MDM improvements, is Ian. Ian, how about you give a short presentation of yourself from the moment you were born until now in 40 seconds, and then present the feature. You are muted.
So I guess to start off, I am a lover of the mute button, apparently. But yeah, rather new here. Got started around the time of the release of 455. But let's actually hop into, I did a a pre-recorded presentation on what exactly is getting built on the Amazon Linux side of things, and that is issue 20934. I go through it in the presentation, so I'm not going to pull that up on GitHub. One moment while I share my screen and hopefully audio.
I don't see anything, Ian.
And all right, that looks like it's working. Let's walk through the vulnerability scanning improvements for Amazon Linux hosts that are currently in review and should be released in Fleet 4.56. As a bit of background, as of Fleet 4.17, we started scanning Red Hat-based OSs, so RHEL, CentOS, Fedora, and Amazon Linux, for vulnerabilities using the same sort of OVAL format that we use for Ubuntu. We started with Amazon Linux 2 here using the generic RHEL feed. The catch with that is that Amazon manages their own vulnerability fixes into Amazon Linux, backporting fixes with their own release names, and those releases aren't relevant to base RHEL because they're not going into RHEL. And as a result, they're not in the RHEL OVAL files, and as a result, we get a lot of false positives when scanning an Amazon Linux host against that RHEL OVAL file. Fortunately, Amazon does have Amazon Linux Security Center, which includes advisories on vulnerabilities fixed with links to CVEs and a list of the package updates that include the fixes to those vulnerabilities. The problem is that those aren't in the standard OVAL format, so you need to parse those in and query against the result. Fortunately, a lot of the hard work has already been done with GoVul Dictionary. It's an open source package that we're incorporating into the workflow that creates our vulnerabilities feed for VulnCheck and NVD. So the output of GoVul Dictionary is, among other things, SQLite files. So we pick up those SQLite files, one per OS version, and zip those up. And then hourly, along with the standard vulnerabilities pull, we have Fleet server set up to download those, extract them, and then query against them. The way that the database works is it lists packages with vulnerabilities, including the fix version on that vulnerability. So first off, we ask the database, hey, do you have any vulnerabilities for this package for this architecture? We've already filtered it down by operating system and version, so that's as precise as we need. Next, we look at those vulnerabilities and see which packages have fixes. Finally, for each of those fixed versions, we compare versus what we currently have installed, and if the installed version is older, then we treat that package as vulnerable. Now, the nice thing about building on top of work that others in the open source community have done is that as part of this improvement, not only do we fix the false positives in Amazon Linux 2, but we also get support for vulnerability scanning of Amazon Linux 1, 2022, and 2023 hosts.
Okay, thank you, Ian. You took it serious to do a short presentation of yourself. We'll have maybe another chance on the all hands, but anyway, happy to have you on board. I'll just complete it. Ian joined us 2 weeks ago and already ramped and doing nice features. Thank you again, Ian, and welcome. Look, that summarizes that sums up the endpoint ops features, and we can. Do you want me to continue directly to the MDM improvements?
Yeah, I'll hand over to George. There was a user story that was missed. I'm not sure if they're ready to demo it yet, but just for anyone who might drop later, we will be shipping the multiple VPP, multiple ABM connections. And I'll hand over to George, and he can decide if they're doing improvements and bugs or if they're ready to demo that story.
Actually, the most helpful thing would be to let Gabe present his fixes, because then he's got some setup to switch to for the feature.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. And let's go right into Gabe Hernandez presenting his bug fixes.
Hey guys, share my screen real quick. Okay, so a lot of UI polish fixes. I'm just going to be jumping between the issue and showing you the actual fix. So this first issue was when you uploaded a VPP software, you lost the icon on the all teams page. So here I have on team 1, I've uploaded the 1Password VPP software. I'm going to jump over to all teams, and you can see now I now have the icon there. So a little bit of polish there for the users. The next one is there was an issue on the policies modal. So here I have a policy. I'm going to go into manage automations, and I'm going to bring up this other workflow modal. The issue was while this request was going on in the background, the user was able to edit this form, which could lead to some confusion on them clicking save, making some edits, and not seeing the edits that they have been typing. So let me just demo that for you real quick. I'm going to slow down my network so you can see it. So I'm just going to fill in this form real quick, just with some dummy data. Do this. And what you're going to see is you're going to see an overlay over this form content, and the user will not be able to interact with this while the modal is saving. So you can see here, that basically just prevents the user from editing the form while it's saving. That's a new pattern we're adding to most of the modals that have forms in the UI. So you should be seeing that across the application as time goes on. The next fix, this one is hard to demo. There's actually a lot of setup. So I'm just going to show you the difference. I'm going to tell you about what the issue was and then just show you the difference, just because it was a copy change. Basically, this copy here assumed that a host, an ABM host, was unboxed if it's not enrolled in Fleet. That's not always the case. Sometimes a host was already unboxed and enrolled, and they basically took it out of their Fleet instance, and it's just sitting in their warehouse, and they're going to wait until someone new comes along to give that device to. So we've just changed the copy to this now. So instead of it referencing unboxed, it just says you will see host vitals when it is enrolled in Fleet. So it's tying the host more to the enrollment and not so much to the unboxing. And then the last one is labels being shown in alphabetical order now. So I'll just show you that real quick. Let me remove the throttling. So when I look at my labels in the host details page, or in the host manage host page, you can see I have label A and label C. If I were to create a new label that alphabetically would fit between those two, we're going to see it squeeze in between those. So for example, if I do label B now, save that, you'll see that these labels now display alphabetically. Before, they were not displaying alphabetically. It was kind of confusing to users on just having kind of a random list of labels. But that's it. Any questions on any of those? No? Okay.
Yeah, I think to clarify, the previous order was create date, so it was just based on when you made them, but now it'll be a little more intuitive. All right, next up we've got Roberto.
Hey, sharing my screen. Let's see. Yeah, a bunch small bug fixes. The first one is related to the feature we shipped last sprint, rotating these encryption keys with escrow body. Some customers were saying like the old reset this encryption key. So we pushed a fix for that one. Then another minor thing, when disk encryption fails in Windows, we were missing, there was like a typo. So we were missing the actual error code. It was not possible to act on because of that. So we fixed that. This was an interesting one. We do some caching of prepared statements in the Go code, but Aurora in particular has a feature where they can upgrade the underlying database without resetting the connections. But that makes all the prepared statements invalid. But the Go code wasn't aware of that, so we were hitting some errors. So we fixed that as well to be able to detect those errors. Yeah, finally, this was, well, this is on the list, but this turned out to be not an issue, just an user error. But yeah, we debugged that, got to the bottom of it. And I think that's it for the list of bugs that I have.
Thank you, Roberto. And then we've got Sarah with 2 more bug fixes.
All right. There's a couple of easy wins. So the first one, our old banner copy that you see on when you need to turn on MDM used to imply that MDM was required to install software, which is not the case. So we cleaned that up to clarify it. I think the fleet release bot says it best. And then we also had a, whoops, let's see here. No, where'd I go? An issue that frustrated Victor as he was trying to develop a particular feature, the one that he showed off earlier. Found he couldn't install download software installer packages, so we cleaned that up. There was a late breaking change in specs that didn't get reflected, so things are now smooth as the rivers flow.
All righty, thank you so much. And that's it for the MDM team. Back to you, Sharon.
Okay, thank you, George and Luke. We'll start with some improvement and fixes in the software installation area. Victor will present a few bug fixes.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. So this first bug fix is, when we delete a iOS and iPad OS that's still in Apple Business Manager, we expect it to reappear in Fleet. So it wasn't reappearing. It was just in this pending state. So let's go ahead and demo how this would look. So first I'm going to go ahead and disable Wi-Fi on my iPad. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete it. There's a bug with this text that's filed. We should update it to say that it's will reappear unless it's removed from Apple Business Manager. But let's go ahead and delete this. And that looks like this. And so what's going to happen now is Fleet is going to try to issue an MDM command and refetch data from this host. So in order for the refetch to go through, I'm going to update this timestamp. It basically every hour it refetches this, so it might take up to an hour for the device to come back. I'm just going to fake it. And then I'm going to, every 10 minutes we have the Apple MDM refetcher job, so I'm going to trigger it. Now remember, I turned off Wi-Fi on my device, so the command didn't actually go through. So I'm going to see what commands are scheduled on my device, and I see refetch device and refetch apps are pending. But what if I go ahead and issue the refetcher again? So this is kind of a second bug fix here. So previously, if you would try to refetch again, it would add 2 more commands to the queue. So you could potentially have like tens, hundreds of commands if the device is offline for a while. But now those commands will not be added because we're tracking specifically these refetch device and refetch apps commands. So I'm going to go ahead and enable Wi-Fi on my device again. And the commands should go through pretty quickly. They have been acknowledged. Let's go back here, refresh this, and then the device is back in your fleet, and you can use it. Okay, so next bug. This is something we covered in the previous sprint demo. Is if we delete an app that's installed, it still shows up as installed. So let's go ahead and try to delete an app and look at this fix. So I'm going to go ahead to my machine. I have some installed software. I have this app installed, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Move to trash. Interesting. So many password prompts. And now it's moved to trash, so I'm going to refetch this. The fact that it disappears, that's another bug that I will fix next. But we can go to all software and see it here. And the app is back to available for install. And so you could overwrite, you could reinstall it over the top of the, basically you can install it again. So that's that bug fix. It no longer shows up as installed. And the last bug I'm going to cover is there was a problem where label names were not being updated in the OS settings, custom settings page. So let's show what I mean. So in the OS settings, custom settings, we can see this label old. And if I go and change this label to label new, previously it wasn't being updated in that controls page, but now if we go back there, it has been updated. So that's the bug fix. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Victor. And last, for the MDM features and improvement, Jacob will show an improvement of error handling. Jacob, take it.
Hey, everyone. So, as I'm sure many of us have experienced, setting up the Apple MDM can be a slightly hairy process. So this was just to help smooth that out a little bit for users who, if they forget to provide their private key to the Fleet server, we've been returning this error here with the link to learn more about it. And now the UI is hopefully making that clickable so that the user can go find out what exactly they need to do with a little bit more ease. And that's it for that one. Back to you, Sharon.
Okay, and back to you, Luke. For this is the entirety of the MDM stuff, and we have some more improvement for endpoint ops.
Great. Gabe, are you ready to demo the feature, or should we do endpoint ops improvements?
I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So over to Gabe.
Okay, cool. So let me share my screen again. So this was a big story for the MDM group. I think every single person has worked on this story. We're still finishing some parts of it up, but I'm gonna give you a good idea.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you pull up the story real quick, just so we can see what user story is?
Of course. Sorry. Let me just get that. So let me read that for y'all. somewhere in here. Okay. So yes, so this story was adding the ability to add multiple Apple Business Manager or ABM and VPP connections. So as an administrator at an MSP that offers a white labeled MDM solution built on top of Fleet, I want to add multiple ABM and VPP connections to Fleet so that I can use one Fleet server to build automatic enrollment and App Store apps workflow for all my clients, including macOS, iOS, and iPadOS hosts. So let me go through the feature to make a bit more sense of that. So the first bit of this feature is a consolidation of a lot of the MDM settings, which both the ABM and VPP require. Basically, they both require ABM or MDM to be enabled. So what I'm showing you here is dog food, and this is currently what it looks like, where you have MDM, and then you have automatic enrollment in a different tab, and then you have VPP in a different tab. The change that we've done is we've consolidated all those settings under this MDM tab section. So just makes it a bit simpler to find all the settings associated with MDM. I've already turned on MDM. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you adding an ABM token. So in this section here, automatic enrollment, you can see I can set up automatic enrollment for Mac, iOS, and iPad hosts by clicking this Add ABM button. So I'm going to click that, and you get taken to a new page. Don't worry about this banner. There's a fix for this that we need to integrate, but you get taken to this new page, this Apple Business Manager page. And because I have no tokens, you're currently seeing this messaging that says, hey, click this to add one. So a user can come in here, click on this, and they get a modal that shows them the steps they need to do to set up their Apple Business Manager token. So I already have a token. I'm gonna just upload that. Hopefully it just works. So I've selected that from my computer. I'm gonna click add, and there you go, I've uploaded it. So you can see now, before we had just one token information. So this is currently what we have in dog fooding. We've changed it now to be a table. Currently there's only one token, but you can have multiple tokens and they'll show up as rows in this table. And you get the same information where you get the organization name, you get the renewal date. And something new is that you get the team associated for these different hosts. So Mac OS team, iOS team, and iPad OS team. I'll go into that real quick. So a single token can be, you can edit the teams associated with those different types of hosts. So for example, for this Mac OS team, I just reset all my database, so I don't have any teams. But if I had teams, you would see them in this dropdown. And I would be able to select those, and all the Mac OS hosts would be associated with that team. So that means kind of in the real world is a user could organize all their Mac OS hosts into one team. You can come in here and say, this is the team where all my Mac OS hosts are. And then you could have this token related to that team.
I want to add just a little bit of color real fast. This is where the host will be placed when still pending enrollment, and as it automatically enrolls, they're not locked into that team. They can transfer teams. All of that flexibility still remains. But yeah, it's just where they get placed automatically when they're first found and enrolled.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm just going to close this because there's not going to be any changes. I don't have any teams set up, but that's where you can edit those. You can also renew. So There's similar sort of warnings. You can't see it now, but if this was within 30 days, you would see a warning here. You would also see a warning at the top that says your token is about to expire. So you would come in here and basically do the same sort of process. You'd take a new ABM token, you'd upload it, and then you'd renew it. And then now it's renewed for however long that is. You could also delete a token, so that'll be the last thing I do, and it's just exactly what it sounds like. So if I want to not use this token anymore, I just go to that option, click delete, and now it's gone. Now I have no tokens left. So that is the new ABM token flow that allows you to upload multiple ABM tokens. Is there any questions on that before I jump to VPP? Anything? Looking at chat. Okay, not seeing anything, so I'm going to jump to VPP. Similar with VPP, where it's now consolidated under the MDM section. In the VPP subsection here, I can go to this new page with this Add VPP button. Looks very similar to what we just saw with ABM. I get messaging here saying you don't have any tokens. You can add one here. And I'm going to, these can follow these steps. I already have a token, so I'm just going to upload it here. I think it's
don't mean to interrupt, but for this one, we might want to create a couple dummy teams to kind of explain how that works.
That's a good idea. Let me just do that real quick. It'll just be 2 seconds. So this, okay, we'll just do that for now. I'm going to go back to where I was. Integrations, the MDM section, and then the VPP section. So I'm going to upload this VPP token. It works. So similar idea where we now render this as a table because you will be able to have multiple VPP tokens that will show up as individual rows. Similar sort of data with organization name, location, and similar functionality with the renew date where you will get a tooltip with if it's either expired or if it's 30 days within expiring to let users know that that's coming up. You can see here we have a different column called teams. And this is related to assigning teams to a VPP token. So this works slightly different than ABM in that a VPP token can be, a single token can be associated with multiple teams. So for example, those two I added, I'm just gonna select those. You can see we have a different type of drop down where we have multiple selectors. This bit is a bit we're still working on. So if I click save, it's not gonna work at the moment. But in your mind, you can imagine I click save, and then in teams, I now see that there are multiple teams related to this VPP token. There's also the ability to renew, similar to the ABM token. So you can do that within 30 days. That is also a bit we're working on, so that's why that's not working right now. And very similar where you can also delete the token, and that does work currently. So that's kind of a high level overview of those two new multiple ABM and VPP token flows. I did mention just at the beginning this warning banner at the top. So part of the work also was to show the correct banner across the entire application. If either your ABM or your VPP token has either expired or is within 30 days of expiring. And as you can see here with this message, the ABM token also has a specific warning if the, oh no, sorry, it's not this message. There's a different message that says the terms have changed and you need to go and accept those new terms in Apple. So like I said, this was a pretty big story. We're still finishing it out, but the whole team has worked on it. And yeah, that's it. Is there any questions on any of this?
Yep, just adding to Dave's, there will be an all teams option for the VPP tokens. And 99% of our customers who aren't MSPs will probably have one ABM token, set up their default teams there, and then one VPP token and set it for all teams for that availability. Now, the restriction there is that any one team is not allowed to have more than one token assigned to it. So if you do set the all teams on one of your tokens, the next time you try to set a team on any token, it'll say, I'm sorry, it'll be disabled and have a tooltip indicating to the customer they have to go, configure that differently if they want to be able to set up different slices like that. All righty, anything else? Any other questions? Thank you so much, Gabe.
Great work. That's an awesome new feature and one that you all turned around really quickly. So cool to see that. And a lot of great comments. The UI and UX is improving, getting more simple and more powerful at the same time. So it's awesome to see that we're holding true to that. From a product standpoint, we're not just introducing features and bloating the UI and the UX and buttons and links everywhere, but we're being really thoughtful and really appreciate the product design work that the whole team, but especially Marco and Rachel, because they're on the call, are doing. And I think last but not least is going to be endpoint ops improvements and bug fixes. So over to Sharon for that.
Okay, so we have 30 minutes and a list of improvements. So reminding everyone to be concise. Lucas, will start with you.
All right. This is a bit boring, but I think it's important. I'll share. Compared to what we just saw. Give me a sec. Can you see my screen? I have a smaller. All right. So a user from the community found this vulnerability in our FleetCTL image and reported it, right? So yeah, we basically had to fix this, right? Because we don't want to have vulnerable software. So just to explain real quick what's going on here. Whenever you execute a FleetCTL to generate packages, we for example, if you are building MSI packages using FleetCTL that you download from npm, it actually downloads Wix Docker image from Docker Hub, which Fleet builds, and then uses that to generate the MSI. Similarly, if you generate PKG using FleetCTL, we are using this bomb utils image also from Docker Hub that Fleet actually developed. These images are pretty outdated and need to be updated, and that was part of the issue here. And then secondly, we offer this thing we call FleetCTL Docker image. We actually implemented this for Sandbox, which doesn't exist anymore, but users are actually using this because it's handy. You just download this Docker image and use it instead of the FleetCTL executable. It's a different shape of flavor of FleetCTL. But the thing is that to fix this Docker image, we had to fix this one and this one because we are actually copying dependencies from these other two. So it was again, a very small report here, but ended up being somewhat big change. The things that we did first, it is important. It's not good when a user reports a vulnerability. Fleet should know first about vulnerabilities in our images. So what we did here is we actually created some GitHub actions that will run daily and check for vulnerabilities on this one, and this one. I think it's this thing. We have this running in already, and yeah, it will check daily if we are vulnerable. And then we actually needed so that the fix will be released whenever we release Fleet. We also release this image to Docker Hub, so that will be fixed on the next release. So there will be no vulnerabilities there. But these ones are, I think they've never been pushed, only once by Zach. So now we added automation to actually push them, which we're gonna need to do, I don't know, every month or so. I don't know how often, but it's not tied to the fleet release. So we actually created more automation to push that somewhere over here. I think it's this one. So with that automation, you can basically fix these images that our users also use. Yeah, and if you basically the user reported this by they use Trivi. Trivi is a scanner for Docker images. So our automation is also now using Trivi every day, so we'll know. So the goal is that we will know in the future if there's any vulnerabilities before our users hit them. So that's fixed. There's nothing to demo because like it just, it's just fixing versions. And then I'll go to the second issue. This one is some false negatives for Office 365. So this one is simple. Right now, we have these Microsoft publishes like these security notes for Office and 365 applications. I think it's once per month they publish their CVEs and the patch version, right, for Microsoft 365. Currently, we have to do this manually, where we actually pull that data, right, and we put it on the release. I believe that soon, I believe we should actually process this thing automatically. So yeah, this was about adding the manual rules for that, and we'll just see that in a second. So if I go to software, Microsoft 365, you'll see now that it has 7 vulnerabilities. I actually pushed the July version, which is an older version, and these 7 vulnerabilities are from August, which are published on this thing. So we now detect them. Just a small thing, whenever I click here, I want to see the CVEs, but I go to the host, so we should fix that. If I click here, it should be the same as clicking right here. Right? Just a small feature request. All right, that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Lucas. Next, we have Victor with a list of fixes and improvements.
Thanks, Sharon. So first one is Alex reported that sometimes you get into situations where you have your Fleet desktop showing a different color than you see on your device page. So the fix is now they're synced up. So I have a video of how that works.
So in this feature, / bug fix, we're trying to keep this bubble status in sync with what the user is seeing. So for example, this is all good. I click on this, I'm passing policies. But what if the host is not passing policies anymore? So we go to a failing policy, we save it, oops, save it. We go back to the host, we refresh. So this bubble is updated every 5 minutes by default. So it may be out of date. We're refreshing, so one policy is not passing anymore. So what the user sees is it's green now, and the change is when they click on this and go, they see a policy, we refresh the desktop at the same time. So now up here they will see the failing policy. So let's try again. Let's go make it pass. Remove it from Mac OS. I don't need to refresh my device because it's simply deleted. And now user says failing, and say they click on self-service now, and this bubble is back to green.
Okay, now moving on to the next bug. So basically in the Google Calendar, you can have free calendar events. And the bug is that the fix is that we can now do scheduled maintenance over those free calendar events. So let me demonstrate. So in my calendar for next Tuesday, I have this event that's marked free. You can have these free events for informational purposes, or for a variety of reasons. So now I'm going to go ahead and make a policy fail. Go to my host, refresh this. And that policy is already set up with the Google Calendar. So now I'm going to trigger calendar manually. And go back to, here we go. And you see that the schedule maintenance was scheduled over the top of the free event because it's not blocking the scheduling anymore. All right, next bug. There was some bad or confusing error messages that GitOps was showing when the team name was already conflicting. The team name or the file name that was being used for GitOps was conflicting. So I'm just gonna show a new error message. So I need to go to my GitOps. So basically the error message is a bit more clear. It says like cannot change team name from, because this file changes the team name. But that team already exists. So it gives you the old team name, the file name, and the team name that already exists. So it's a bit clearer when you can't change a team name, or when you're like copy pasting, and this shows up a lot when you're copy pasting files. Moving on. So for the rest of these, I don't really have demos. I'm going to talk about them. Okay, I see. So this one is we have a webhook that fires once a day if policies are failing. And so Jacob noticed that he got a webhook where the failing host count was 0 and the passing host count was 0. And the reason because of that is because we update these counts once an hour. So if those counts weren't updated, you could get a webhook for a failing host, but the count is 0. So the fix is when we're sending out the webhook, we're simply making sure that this is never 0, right? It's either going to be something that's already in the database, or we simply look at the number of hosts failing and set that count to that number. So that's the fix. So this failing host count will never be 0 in the webhook anymore. Next, we had a P1 vulnerabilities issue. So that was due to formatting change in the JSON files that we're getting. So myself and Ian worked on that. So that's been resolved. Basically, vulnerability processing stopped for like around 2 days. But then we got that back on track without a fleet update needed. Other vulnerability stuff, some small items. So I noticed that our vulnerability processing was skipping 1Password password manager because of non-ASCII characters. And there's potentially more issues here, but the reason we're skipping non-ASCII characters is because we cannot process foreign language applications. However, some software names use non-ASCII characters. For example, 1Password uses this am dash, and other software use other characters. So I mean, this is a spot fix. Basically, we're now allowing M dashes and N dashes in the software, but we might want to revisit this, both foreign language support and special character support in the future. The other vulnerability fix is homebrew packages are only supported for macOS. So now when we generate a CPE, we put Mac OS in the CPE if the software comes from a homebrew package. So this should reduce potential false positives, because sometimes CVEs are specific to a system. So now we explicitly specify the system for homebrew software. And I think the last one is Robert on the infra team saw that there was a inefficient query that was taking a long time. So basically, I optimized that query. Basically, I just needed to add an index to speed that query up. And that's it for my bug fixes. Back to you, Sharon.
Okay, thank you, Victor. I must say it was really hard to to not laugh reading the chat with all the new feature suggestions. Pity it's not public in the recording. But next we have Jacob.
Oh, hello. So here we had a small situation where changing from a software table, so that's any of the tables on this page, well, any of the tables, or versions rather, from a state where there are no rows present, so like this, to a state where there are rows present, looked a little funky, so just improved that. So if you watch right now, ooh, that's a little cleaner than it was. And that'll apply for versions and anywhere else we use the software table component. Yes, small update to the host activity feed. Throttling. Let's undo that. So when there are no upcoming activities, we wanted to, we've got a lot of new functionality that's now showing up here, including software installs, and the previous copy was not, didn't really make sense with that. So we've updated this copy, same here, and updated this tooltip. So there's no demo for this work, but basically we had, like Sharon alluded to, we had a pretty large spec shakeup this sprint. So that gave a little bit of engineering capacity for a couple days, and we've had this back burner work that was originally filed in response to a P2 incident we had a few months ago. So we're just kind of back burner adding better coverage of our UI data tables, and this is addressing some of that, so making Fleet a little more reliable. And that's it.
Thank you, Jacob. Team, the next.
All right, mine should be pretty quick. Not a lot to demo. I'm just going to overview this. We had a false positive on Python in the vulncheck feed. I want to point out real quick, because this is kind of new for vulncheck. They have a UI now, so we no longer have to query the API to see if it's a vulncheck. If we're determining whether the false positive is vulncheck or MBD. So that is corrected by Fleet. Second one is a bug / feature, maybe. It's we're upgrading the Mac admins extension, which I believe the only change for us is related to the SOFA feed URL. We're changing the defaults. And that's it.
Thank you, Tim. And last for the endpoint ops is Rachel.
Hey, this one's going to be super quick. Little soapboxy. But basically, we kind of neglect our fleet free app often. So we worked a lot in like this add software modal last sprint. And out of like the 5 or 6 hands that touched this, we totally forgot all about fleet free. So we just fixed up making sure that it did not show a please select a team message and it said, hey, by the way, you need Fleet Premium for this. And there's just a few parts in the UI I noticed we can probably improve, like available for install. If you're on Fleet Free, we shouldn't allow them to click on these. Kind of remind them, like, why don't you pay for this? And I found another one, I think it was here, but I know Gabe's redoing this page, so hopefully our users on Fleet Free don't get so many error messages or weird UIs where it's like, wait a second, that's actually for premium, but I can't actually use it. So cool.
Okay, so that's it for endpoint ops and a little time for the OS query. Back to you, Luke.
Sorry, thank you. I was wrong. We do have another demo. Victor has a great fix into OS query core that he's going to show.
Thanks, Luke. So OS query has this feature where you can monitor file system events, and it uses iNotify feature in Linux. So this is a Linux specific. So the issue was the customer was seeing a lot of errors like this. And fundamentally, this was due to there being a soft link that was pointing to this file, and OS query was treating soft links like directories. So let's watch the fix.
And link to a file. So with the current OS query, so I have a directory. All right, this is a file integrity monitoring fix. So I have a directory. There's some links, some bad good and bad links, a couple bad links, and then and then link to a file. So with the current OS query, this link to a file is going to cause an issue. It's going to cause a warning. So the file integrity monitoring config I have is here, config.json, and simply saying we're going to monitor this directory where these files are at. So with the current OS query 512.1, I'm going to launch this command, OS query I. I'm going to point to that config file down here. Disable events false, enable file events true. And then when I launch it, I get this warning that we could not add the watch on this, which appears to look like a directory, but we know it's not a directory. It's just a link pointing to a file. So now with the new OS query version that has the fix, OS query build, I believe I'm missing something here. There we go, another OS query path. This is the new OS query. We no longer see that warning because we're checking to see if the symlinks actually point to directories or not.
Okay, that's it. Back to you, Luke.
Awesome. Thank you, Victor. I'd like to point out that was a P2 urgent issue for one of our customers in OS query core. Those can take a bit longer since it's not purely up to us when it merges and when it releases, but wanted to point out 2 weeks from the time the customer reported, Victor had a fix merged into OS query core. And it's all, I didn't know it already shipped in 5.13.1 and shipped, dang, within 3 weeks. So that's pretty awesome to get that done with OS query core. Appreciate you.
Quarter of the typical time, I would say. It's really fast. And one more interesting point is that this came from a customer, which shows that at least some of our customers are using events detection, not just vulnerability and MDM and stuff. So that's another aspect of Fleet that customers can use.
Cool. Well, a lot of great work in Nickel. 4.56.0 will be shipping next week, probably a bit on the later side of the week as we wrap up and go through smoke testing, and obviously a lot of things to QA in this release, but really excited to get this out the door. More good stuff to come. Thank you all. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you soon.